Challenger Auto and Truck Service, and what we're going to speak about is our vehicle's brakes. So I have a brake rotor here and a brake pad, and then a model of what a proper thickness is on a brake pad and what we go by. So the first thing I'm going to discuss here briefly is there are two types of brake system inspections and when they should be done. The main brake system inspection that I'm going to speak about is what we call a complete brake system inspection. But I can't talk about that without discussing what we consider a routine brake inspection. So a routine brake system inspection should be done when you have an oil change service or a different type of maintenance service, a 15,000 mile service, a 30,000 mile service. And basically what that is when a client's vehicle comes into our shop for an oil change, we always look the vehicle over head to toe so we can make sure everything mechanically looks sound. That is a good visual inspection of the brake system. Client's not complaining about any brake issues, so we are really visually checking the brake pads for wear, how they look like they're wearing, and then we're also looking at the brake rotors, the conditions that they're in. We're checking the brake fluid too, the brake lines. It's not a full operational brake system inspection. The complete brake system inspection is when a client actually brings their vehicle in for a brake problem. So it might be that the brake pedal feels spongy. It might be that the brakes are grinding, they're squeaking. When hitting the brakes at higher speeds, the steering wheel shaking back and forth. That is information that we are now going to do a complete brake system inspection. And I do believe that there is a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things. So our complete brake system inspection then requires the technician to test drive the vehicle, doing multiple different types of stops, where we do quick stops, we do longer stops. We do get some heat into the brakes so we can see if there's any chatter or vibration when braking. We want to feel how the brakes are behaving, and how they feel is very important. And then the next thing we do is the vehicle obviously comes in the shop, and the vehicle is then raised in the air for us to take the tires off so we can fully inspect calipers, brake pads, rotors. We actually measure the rotor thickness. Rotor thickness is very important. We also check all the brake lines, the steel brake lines, the rubber hydraulic lines. Steel brake lines rusting has become a very common problem, especially vehicles that are 10 years or older. And then we also look at the operation of the emergency brake system. We also look at brake fluid. So a lot of drivers do not know about brake fluid. And a lot of places do not discuss brake fluid, but brake fluid is very important because it is called hygroscopic. And that means over time the brake fluid pulls moisture into itself, even through a sealed canister. So if we rewind back, brake fluid used to come in metal canisters. As a matter of fact, if you buy brake fluid that is more quote-unquote European, you typically will see it in a metal canister. And why did they use metal versus plastic? Well, metal, putting it in a metal canister greatly slows down the process of being hygroscopic, of moisture pulling into the brake fluid. We even test new brake fluid because we have had new brake fluid where the moisture content was too high. We use a refractometer because that is what engineers use, and the test strips we have found to be very inaccurate. So why is brake fluid moisture content important? Well, moisture is water. So brake fluid typically in a cycle for maintenance is typically about every 30,000 miles you want to do a complete flush of the brake system. So what happens with moisture is brakes create a lot of heat. It is friction. So it's almost just like the good old Flintstones. You know, Fred would put his feet on the ground to stop the vehicle. Well, brakes, the way brakes work is literally the brake pad engaging that brake rotor and friction slowing the vehicle down. So if brake fluid moisture content is really high, say it's 8 to 10%, and we're in very heated braking moments, you know, maybe we're driving through the mountains Maybe we're in a lot of intense traffic and we're using the brakes a lot. Well, that brake fluid can actually start to boil out at the brake calipers. The brake system's hydraulic, and when the brake fluid boils, all of a sudden our brakes do not feel correct. The pedal starts to feel spongy, the vehicle's harder to stop, we're hitting the brake pedal harder. Now that is in really extreme cases. The other reason we want to control moisture content is because moisture will rust internal components from the inside out. And most modern vehicles have anti-lock brake systems. The anti-lock brake system controllers are very expensive, and we want to keep healthy brake fluid in all of our actual working mechanical brake components so that the vehicles will brake and stop safely and be reliable. So, getting back to our complete brake system inspection, I talked about us measuring the rotors. So the reason we do that is we are a shop that still machines brake rotors. It's something that I see slipping away from the industry, but I think it's important, one, to be able to do a job properly and help clients reduce cost. So with a brake rotor, what I mean by measuring it is all brake rotors have a thickness, meaning a nominal thickness and then a minimum machine thickness. When you do a brake job, if you just take an old brake rotor, well, we have a brake pad that's maybe it's 90% worn. Well, that brake pad has worn into that brake rotor. It creates glazing, little high-low spots. And if all we did was take a new set of pads and put it on that rotor, well, then it can lead to squeaking noises, vibrations, and reduced braking. So if the rotors are able to be machined and we measure them, then we machine the rotor so that we use a brake lathe. The brake lathe allows us to machine this surface on both sides, here and here, to a perfect flatness. And then we put what's called a non-directional finish. So that way our new brake pad is wearing on a brand new surface. It will break into that surface, and that goes a long way in eliminating brake noises, squeaks, etc. We also are very picky in regards to the brake pads that we use. Unfortunately, in this trade, there are multiple lines of parts involving certain components. We use a premium ceramic brake pad for really 98% of vehicles. The other 2% are when there is not the vehicle wasn't manufactured with a ceramic brake pad. It might have been manufactured with a semi-metallic pad, which really is probably less than 2% now. But even then, if it was manufactured with a semi-metallic pad, we do look for the option of a ceramic brake pad for it, because those pads seem to work better in regards to noise, less brake dust. So the brake system inspection is very important. When a client has a brake concern, a brake issue, it is critical that it is done properly and the brake job is done properly. The inspection, to me, to us at Challenger, is the most important part. That way we can get a very realistic look at the brake system. We are able to address the client's concerns, properly repair, and have the job done correctly the first time, so that we do not have a vehicle come back for a brake noise or another issue later on. So that is how we approach brake systems in vehicles, and thank you so much for watching the video. Once again, this is Jeff with Challenger Auto, and we'll talk to you the next time.